So let's take a look at this. So how would you sort of, discuss, or how would you sort of like approach questions that are already known, okay, and they are directly from your syllabus? First thing, how do you go about introducing this? So for instance, let us say that, just focus on the what, okay, what or the why, right? These kind of components basically help you address the question, point blank, like very, very good, hit the nail right on the head, right? So you could possibly focus on this thing. There is another one that you could possibly do. Okay, again, sorry. You could essentially try to bring in a definition. Okay, definition is another sort of an approach, right? For instance, let's say we are talking about judge money system. You can bring in some sort of a scholarly perspective, right? What did Oscar Lewis say? How exactly does he take a look at what is judge money system? Something of that, this one, right? So another one that you could possibly also do is that, you take anthropologists. So let's say any sort of a scholar. So for instance, let's say there is a question, for example, there's a question on racial classification or ethnic classification. Okay, now depending upon the number of marks that is provided for this particular question, you could even basically say that, oh, H. Risley, or just let's just go with Risley. Okay, Risley sort of, tries to make an attempt to sort of like classify the entire population through his attempt, right? As a census commissioner, he had access to a lot of data, so you could probably bring that in. The next thing you could probably talk about is a little better sort of a classification a little later, and that is Gulas, right? And he, sort of brings those sort of elements in which he talks about, bringing Indian, sort of dividing the Indian population to multiple different sort of groups and so on and so forth. So you could already think about certain ideas through which, if the question is already known, it's directly from syllabus, you know exactly what are the components that you're going to use in order to construct that definition, that introduction. It could be what, why, those sort of elements that you could probably go with. If you already know what is if the question is about a caste or something, you could possibly start with the definition of caste or the etymology of caste. If it is about some other sort of question where you can literally start from the very beginning on introducing a scholar and their perspectives, then great. Okay, recent data is also another sort of an approach that you could possibly go with. So for instance, the other example that I mentioned just a while ago was that if you're talking about tribal health, try to see if you can bring some sort of a, an example or some sort of a stat that highlights the idea that tribes and health, it is not a very pleasant or a rosy sort of a picture. Okay, that could probably help you sort of make that mark very, very soon. So you are not only having the body or the content, you're also trying to make a very good sort of an introduction, impactful sort of an introduction can help to a great extent. Okay, in terms of the body, right? So, okay. So once you have these kind of introduction ready, so the next thing you're going to go sort of wade into is going to be the body. So whenever you make some sort of a point, try to see if you can defend that particular point with the views of the scholars. This could help you. Okay, you could even bring in some examples and examples. We've tried to give you as many examples as possible. You can refer the sources and then basically add those things. But these are all available in from the newspaper. So every week when you're reading the newspaper, there will always be some news about Indian society, something about the caste, right? For instance, in Rajasthan, there was an incident in which a member of a higher caste teacher had sort of slapped or sort of beaten a student of a lower caste. So that is one example, right? There is also a counter view that the child was already having some sort of an issue, a health issue or something. But be that as it may, I am sure that is almost a weekly sort of a news. This kind of an episode is happening in some part of the country or the other. So try to bring in some sort of a case like this and try to see if you can highlight the point that you're trying to make. Okay, defend the point that you're trying to make, or sort of substantiate the point that you're trying to make. Okay, especially when you're talking about certain topics, right? Whether it is your caste related topic. So let's say the caste, or let's say a judge money system, the tribals, the NGOs, all of these things can, so for instance, NGOs, there are a lot of NGOs working. Okay, can you provide specific examples? Okay, specific sort of NGOs doing specific sort of work. Okay, if you can bring these kind of examples, I think that will also sort of help you. So that means the return that you're getting from reading the newspaper is going to be a lot higher because you're clearly able to extract what you need from it and what can basically go into your body in order to make that strong sort of an impact, right? So specificities will also help you to a great extent. Where can you get these specificities? Again, current affairs will be a great sort of resource. Again, you don't want to overdo it. The basic skeleton of your answer is the important sort of an element, but I think this helps you sort of add some oomph. Okay, it helps you add some impact, right? It helps you substantiate the point that you're trying to make, right? And then the three basic parts, right? So you have the introduction, sorry, you have the introduction, you have the body, and then you have the conclusion. So how would you sort of conclude? See, one way to sort of conclude this thing is, how would you conclude answers that is, for Indian society? How would you sort of conclude an answer that is more of tribal India? How would you conclude answers that are more of fossils and archaeology? So if it is archaeology and fossils, you want to basically showcase that, the current finding, or if it is not a current finding, even the kind of findings that you have talked about in the body, this helps you understand to a great extent the idea of human evolution, where we come from, or it could even be the fact that it helps us understand the material culture or the non-material culture, and how exactly it progressed, how exactly it evolved. That is one thing, right? Whether you're talking about Indian society, depending upon which part of Indian society you're talking about, if it is some sort of a theory, then you could possibly focus on how that particular theory helps us understand Indian society better, right? Does it help us understand the social change in Indian society, like Sanskritization, Westernization? Great. Does it help us understand the interaction between different sort of groups in Indian society, like the great traditions and the little traditions? Okay. Universalization and parochialization, try to focus on how basically it helps us understand Indian society a lot better, and the valuable contribution that particular theory has made. If you're writing about caste and so on and so forth, just try to ensure that you give depict the real picture about how exactly it operates in Indian society, right? Today also we have notions of ritual purity and pollution, but it is also sort of, it is not only ritual purity and pollution, right? The economic aspects matter, the political aspects matter, the social capital, right? Through a person's caste also matters, right? So all of those things. So you can basically give a concluding sort of a take. It can be your opinion, it can be, and so on and so forth, right? So all of that. Okay, so essentially, in Indian society, you can basically talk about highlighting the current relevance, right? The current relevance. Now, if it is about Jashmani, you can talk about the decline in it. If it is about dominant caste, you can talk about the relevance today, and so on and so forth, right? Try to make the conclusion impactful. That's the basic funda here. Okay, if the conclusion is impactful, it does your body a great service. Okay, when you have a great body, right? The content of in the body, the content is like very, very good, but the conclusion is slightly weak. It really does a disservice to the entire answer, right? The conclusion sort of spoils it for the entire answer, right? Generally, you have to understand that they give you marks right after reading your conclusion, and if the conclusion is impactful, it really helps you sort of like get a little more brownie points. And so on and so forth, right? So I hope that is kind of clear as well. So introduction, body, conclusion, just focus on crafting a wholesome, the answer should have some unity, right? The introduction say the body should flow, the body say you should have your conclusion